Welcome fam, before we dive into the story please kindly subscribe to the channel, like the video and share your thoughts below. Richard Blake's mornings began with silence. At 52, he was carved from marble, sharply dressed, emotionally frigid, and widowed for almost a decade. His sprawling mansion on the outskirts of Akoi whispered with life only in the murmurs of house staff who had mastered the art of being invisible. Breakfast was served at precisely 7:30 a.m. Black coffee, dry toast, and stock reports. His staff tiptoed around him, their movements rehearsed and mechanical, especially the maid named Amara. She was punctual, precise, and perpetually quiet, always with her head slightly bowed. Richard had no idea what her voice sounded like, and he preferred it that way. Yet that morning, as he passed through the marble hall, Richard's eyes lingered on the figure kneeling by the stairs. Amara, dark-skinned in her modest brown uniform, scrubbed the railings with rhythmic care. But there was something different, something unshaken. She didn't look up as he passed, but for the first time he noticed the way her lips moved slightly, counting perhaps, or praying. Amara knew the art of silence so well it had become her second skin. Since joining Blake Estate 2 years ago, she had conditioned herself to blend into shadows. Her world revolved around sweeping, scrubbing, and serving. No one asked her name, and no one cared to know her story. What they didn't know was that her silence had purpose. She used the quiet to dream, to plan, and to study. Beneath her bed, wrapped in cloth, were second-hand textbooks on anatomy and biochemistry. Each night, after finishing her duties, Amara sat by the kitchen table with a pencil and flashlight, sketching bones and memorizing medical terms while the estate slept. Her dream was born from tragedy. She had watched her mother bleed from a tumor no one diagnosed in time. She'd held her brother as he choked from malaria complications in a clinic that had no 4 fluids. Through it all, her dream sharpened until it became a vow. One midnight, as she studied arteries of the human heart, Richard appeared in the kitchen doorway, still dressed in his evening blazer, a glass of water in his hand. Amara froze, panic rising as her eyes darted to the textbooks. "Don't," Richard said quietly. "What are you studying?" "Just reading, sir," she mumbled. "Biology." Richard glanced at the dog-eared pages. "This is med school material." "Yes, sir." There was a long pause. He looked at her again, really looked this time. "Carry on," he said before walking away. For the next few days, Richard found himself distracted. He couldn't shake the image of her bent over medical books, reciting terms with focus and desperation. One night, unable to resist, he found himself descending the stairs past midnight. The kitchen light was on, and there she was. "Why medicine?" he asked softly. Amara's eyes widened, then lowered. "Because I've watched people I love die because there was no one to help them. Not in time. Not properly. I want to be that person. That's a heavy reason. Some people are born into hospitals. Others are born praying for one to exist near them." In that moment, Richard realized she wasn't a cleaner who happened to study. She was a doctor trapped in a cleaner's uniform. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Respect. Amara sat on her narrow cot that evening, holding a worn photograph of her younger brother Chuka, grinning with 2 missing teeth. She remembered his final cries, the way his body had convulsed from fever. Her mother's voice still echoed, "Please, my son is dying." But the clinic gates never opened. Chuka had died in her arms as the rooster crowed. Since then, every textbook wasn't just for her dream, it was for him. A silent promise made that morning beneath a gray sky. Richard sat in his study, a whiskey glass untouched beside his laptop. Something in him resisted the pull. She was a maid, after all. What business did he have feeling this kinship? But when he passed the hallway and saw her quietly cleaning while whispering myocardial infarction under her breath, he paused behind the glass door, heart caught in limbo. He remembered his late wife Olivia, who had wanted to start a mobile clinic but ran out of time. We're all just stories waiting to matter, she had once said. And here was Amara writing her story in notebook margins despite the world telling her not to. The next morning, Richard called his longtime lawyer, Sydney. I need you to draft something for me quietly. A scholarship fund, discreet, anonymous. Full tuition, books, housing, everything for a girl named Amara. A relative? Sydney asked. No. She cleans my kitchen. Sydney's brows rose, but he nodded. And you don't want her to know it's you. Not now. Maybe not ever. The following week, a white envelope appeared under Amara's bedroom door. Inside was a letter from Logos University College of Medicine. Full scholarship, accommodation provided, books paid for. The final line read, this opportunity was awarded based on merit, courage, and potential. No signature, no trace. Amara sat on her bed's edge, the letter trembling in her hands. For several minutes she couldn't move. When she told Bernice, the cook screamed so loud the pantry echoed. You scholarship medical school? Bernice gasped, throwing her arms around Amara. God knows how to answer prayers with no sound. Veronica, the estate manager, was far from impressed. So you've received your wings now, she said with disdain. You think you're special. They all think that until reality bites. Amara's smile didn't waver. Perhaps, but for now I'll try anyway. The morning of departure came cloaked in gold. Amara stood by the service gate with one worn suitcase, her uniform replaced by a simple green dress. The housekeepers hugged her one by one. Bernice placed a small handkerchief in her palm. Wipe your face before you walk into your new life. Go make us proud. Richard waited until the last moment. He stepped out just as she reached for the gate latch. You're leaving? He asked, voice steady, unreadable. Yes, sir. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to work here. Don't waste the chance you've been given. I won't. As she walked away, Richard watched her back grow smaller, the gate clicking shut like a soft farewell. That night, the house felt different. Less like emptiness, more like anticipation. The city greeted Amara with noise, light, and breathless urgency. Her first week at Logos University was overwhelming. The halls were packed, professors spoke fast, peers quoted studies like nursery rhymes. She sat at the back, heart pounding, trying to remember she belonged. Each evening, she retreated to the library corner where few others sat. There she would breathe, review, remember. She kept the scholarship letter folded in her notebook, pressing it between chapters like a leaf of hope. When she entered the dissection lab, the smell of preservatives clung like heavy fog. Several students stood stiffly around metal tables, faces pale. Amara's heart thudded as she approached her assigned station. First time always rattles, said a fellow student, Bernice Adebayo. You just need to remember they chose to teach us this way. It's a kind of sacrifice. That day they worked together quietly. When Amara's turn came to make the incision, she hesitated only a moment. Then her hand moved, not with fear, but with gratitude. Every cut felt sacred. You did good, Bernice said afterward. Most people faint or flee. You didn't even flinch. Because I've seen death when it's cruel. This one felt peaceful. Years passed in a blur of rotations, exams, and sleepless nights. Amara excelled despite the challenges, her name consistently at the top of class rankings. She wrote letters to her unknown benefactor, pouring gratitude onto pages she never mailed. Back in Akoi, Richard received updates through Sydney. Photos showed Amara smiling outside labs, white coat creased, stethoscope around her neck. Pride bloomed in his chest, not because he gave charity, but because he finally gave someone space to become. 6 years later, a new building opened quietly on Queen Street, Hope Health Center, founded by Dr. Amara A's. No ribbon cutting, no press, just a chalkboard reading, "Walk in, we see you." Amara stood in the doorway that morning, white coat stitched with her name. The clinic had only 5 rooms and a single receptionist, but it was enough. Her first patients trickled in slowly, an asthmatic child, an elderly woman with swollen knees, a young boy with infected sores. She treated each like royalty. Why here? Patience asked about the neglected location. Because need doesn't knock on polished doors, she answered gently. Behind her desk, she hung no degrees. Instead, she pinned letters, notes she'd written over the years but never sent. In the center, the very first one, with a note below in her handwriting, "Faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes it studies at midnight with sore feet and borrowed textbooks." It was late afternoon when the clinic bell chimed. Amara looked up to see an older man with silvered hair and a cane. Richard Blake. She hadn't seen him in nearly a decade. "So this is the miracle everyone whispers about," he said, voice low but proud. "Sir," she breathed, "I thought I'd come see what became of that girl I once found whispering to herself in my kitchen." Over tea in the small break room, they sat in comfortable silence. "It's quiet here," he said finally. "Peaceful. You created that." "I meant to say thank you a long time ago," she whispered. "And I meant to say I was proud long before now." She pulled out her tin of unsent letters. "These are all the letters I wrote to the person who helped me." Richard reached forward with shaking hands. "You carried more than anyone should have had to, and yet you gave back. You saw me when it mattered. That was enough." He covered her hand with his. "You made this place possible, not me. You were never just a girl cleaning floors. You were building a life." Months later, Richard passed peacefully. At his memorial, Amara spoke. "Richard Blake taught me something through the space he gave me to grow. He didn't save me, I was never broken. But he believed quietly when no one else did. Sometimes that's all a person needs." The clinic expanded slowly, organically. Amara created a reading corner filled with medical texts. Youths like a cleaner dreaming of medical school, found sanctuary there. She welcomed them all with patience and grace. Standing before her wall of letters one evening, Amara whispered, "You saw me. Now I'll keep seeing others." She had built more than a clinic. She had created a sanctuary for the forgotten, the unseen, the ones still on the edge of becoming. Matthew 25 verse 40. The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Moral **** greatness doesn't always begin with applause. Sometimes it begins with quiet endurance and one person's unseen belief. True power lies not in titles or wealth, but in the courage to see, believe, and uplift without expecting anything in return. What did you learn from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who might be interested. Thank you for watching.